Is left-wing violence the new normal? Right-leaning pundit Scott Jennings, he thinks so. Here he is earlier this week weighing in on Tara Palmeri's podcast. Check it out.
Vandalism.
Scott,
Luigi
you called it an
Mangione,
insurrection
worship.
perpetrated by the president.
Unbelievable. I mean, and the adherence to trying to keep these violent, illegal aliens in the country. The left has a problem with violence. It is in its heart right now.
Palmeri tried to push back, bringing up January 6th. Take a look.
You cannot say it is just, like, you can't just say it's the left that is violent. We had an insurrection at the Capitol. You have literally seen people on both sides committing violence. I think that the problem is not the left. I think it is the extremes on both sides of the party. And that is what's happening. Like, they're the loudest voices, whether the leaders want them or not. And they're the ones who tend to be the most violent. I don't think that's fair to say it's only the left.
Now, in a recent piece for the Spectator World, writer Max Horder highlights the startling shift toward political violence here in America, especially from the left. Last year alone, Horder points to the multiple attempts on President Donald Trump's life, destructions of Tesla dealerships, most recently the fatal shooting of a Jewish couple in D.C., and just a few days ago, Molotov cocktail-wielding pro-Palestine Egyptian national set a pro-Israel crowd in Boulder, Colorado on fire. And then, of course, let's not forget Luigi Mangione.
But data shows that it goes both ways. A PBS NewsHour NPR Marist poll taken ahead of the 2024 election revealed that 1 in 5 Americans, regardless of their political affiliation, believe political violence is justified at times. That is insane.
Well, I don't know. It depends on the wording. Like, I mean, you know, if we're being invaded by a, you know, if like Nazi Germany arrived on our shores, like resistance to a fascist government would be a form of political violence as self-defense that is justifiable, right? I would have to see how they ask that question.
Right.
Political violence, yes, is not acceptable in the context of the American experience where we vote for people in power and they make laws and they carry out those laws, and you shouldn't violently resist those laws even if you think they're wrong. You work through the electoral process. So yeah, in today's context, political violence is basically always wrong. But I could imagine some scenario where it was just, I mean, the founding of the country was political violence, right? As George Washington and the founders, it's political violence. So I don't quite know where I would even weigh in on that poll.
It's pretty apparent to me that Scott Jennings is intentionally trying to ignore what obviously would be a balance
Base
in
Scott
political...
Jennings, who's
yes,
right.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're talking about the Buffalo shooting. We're talking about the Tree of Life synagogue incident. We're talking about the Michigan governor attempted kidnapping.
Wait.
We're talking about attack on Nancy Pelosi's husband. These are all in recent history that people could say could have been directly affected by conversations happening on the right. We also can't downplay January 6th as one incident when I just named 4 others that were similar if you want to tie that connection. There was a coordinated nature of the Capitol breach. There was a continued mainstream...
Coordinated? It was not coordinated.
Yeah, it was coordinated. There were people who went there with intention to... Not all, but all of them were pardoned.
It was
and
a
the people who coordinated... No, it
riot.
wasn't spontaneous.
It was an absolutely spontaneous riot.
There was involvement of militia groups, many of whom were prepared for the violence in advance.
The decision to enter the Capitol was spontaneous.
I don't
or
think
if
anybody
anything,
makes that knee-jerk
encouraged
decision. I think
by law enforcement personnel.
No. I think it was encouraged
Oh,
by
the only
the rhetoric around the election being
saying
stolen.
We need to go into the Capitol was, I forget that guy's name, but who was himself I think, FBI, or I can't quite remember.
People were hurt, and
he was the person on tape saying we need to go into the building.
People were hurt, and so we should be direct about that. We dissent any political violence. It should be okay to say anybody who has egged this on, even when there was an assassination or 2 assassination attempts against President Trump. I said this is a moment to bring the temperature down. I'll stay consistent in that thought. I think it's important to make sure that on both sides of the aisle, we are telling people that we can disagree. We can provide perspective and criticism on anything that any person elected into office brings to the table that will affect our lives. But at the end of the day, we cannot encourage people to do anything.
Don't you see something a little
malicious?
Yes, I agree with that. Don't you see something a little hypocritical, though, that, yes, when it just seems like when some right-wing person does some nutty or crazy thing, then it's all Trump's fault, it's all Tucker Carlson's fault, it's all Fox News' fault, it's all the fault of everybody on the right because it's edgy, provocative content. But then when some Muslim foreign national sets people on fire or whatever it is, then it's, oh, but no, they're all peaceful. It's no, don't point fingers anywhere. It's just that guy's fault. I agree. It's just that guy's fault. I don't blame other people. When you do violence, that's on you. It's not because, don't blame somebody else's rhetoric. That's sloppy. That's excuse making. We all use heated rhetoric at all times. We could all bring it down just because it would be nice to have a little bit less edgy rhetoric in public. But I don't think it's Bernie Sanders' fault that guy shot a bunch of Republicans at the baseball game years ago. I don't think it's the speaker's fault. It's the violent person's fault. And crazy people who want to harm other people for reasons of own mental illness will often attach themselves or borrow the language of political causes or racial extremism or religious intolerance, but it's really because they're crazy and they latch on to, like, if you go to a mental health asylum, you'll hear crazy people ranting about Jews and blacks and gays and Catholics, and it actually is not coming from some deeply held place of ideological, politically motivated violence. It's because they're crazy, and crazy people use that language.
I agree with you, which is why I said when we talked about Trump's assassination attack, we should not find that moment to point to a political win. That's ridiculous to me. Just like I agree that right now with the incident that happened in Boulder, we should not point to Biden for a political win. I am consistent in that thought, and I agree with you 100%. I think that a critique of institutions is important, and so if that leads to people being riled up, that's one thing, but when it leads to violence, that's another thing. But I also don't think it should be attached to the actual political figure that's questioning the institution, or the person or the people in Congress that are questioning the institution, because that doesn't lead to hatred of the country. That just means that we're asking real questions about policies and institutions that we maybe don't think serve us anymore. And I think that that is an important distinction, and people are crazy single actors, and we should prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. But it's also coming from the top down at this point, where President Trump immediately on the day of the Boulder incident talked about Biden's immigration policies and automatically is asking for people to look at President Biden, when I'm asking all leaders across the board to find time to bring the temperature down and come together and find moments like these to say that both sides of the aisle completely condemn this and we agree on that page. And I think that's a simple request of people that we voted in office, because I don't think anybody's goal is to have people hurt or injured.
Before we move on, I have a bee in my bonnet always about this, the Gretchen Whitmer kidnapping. If you look more closely at what actually went on, this was some edgy talk by, some militia-associated right-wing people. The plot was at all times known to the FBI. The FBI was paying some members of this militia to be informants to keep the plan, to move it forward, because it's textbook like entrapment sort of thing, where they want them to go up so far into doing it so that they can then charge them more aggressively. So she was never in any danger. At all times, the FBI was fully aware, had all information on these people, and was paying one of them to tell the others, we should try to go buy weapons. We should try to do it this day. Like, it is not at all how it was initially portrayed, and I find that worth bringing up.
Well, I find any kidnapping of anybody who's in a government position or anybody in America to be alarming, and even a conversation.
I find it even more alarming when the government is paying people to do it.
But even the initial conversation of getting the idea off the ground for the government to tap into and help with, I mean, because we've seen that across the board historically, that the FBI sometimes gets involved in things that we can criticize and have an entire conversation about. But the fact that it was on the table
they
for
entrap Muslim kids all the time
is a problem. I think when it's on the table, we should look at it. Just like if you text something inappropriate about the president, you probably will get your phone looked at. It's like there are warning signs, and so we shouldn't be trying to kidnap anybody in public office, or anybody for that matter. And we should make sure people who plan things like that get in trouble. Robby, that's pretty standard.
Have you ever heard the joke about the KKK rally, a white supremacist rally?
No. Tread softly.
Half the people there are undercover FBI agents, and the other half are undercover journalists.
That's ridiculous.
It's true.
That's ridiculous.
We've got a lot more topics to talk about on Rising right after this. Stay with us.